Fabulous with Vips and Vicky. The ThinqShift podcast for professionals who aspire to be fabulous leaders. Those who not only succeed, but also purposefully seek to reinvent the world.
Hey, welcome to the Be Fabulous podcast. This is part of our season 3. And as you know, we've been bringing in guests to run these sort of mini-series, if you like. And I'm delighted to do the next mini-series here. And this time it's with Sean McCall. Sean McCall is a good friend, vice president, recovering technologist and business leader. I'm not sure how he wants to phrase himself. I'll let him introduce himself shortly. But what we really want to do is, we see this a lot in our world where we have, what I like to call fabulous people who are techies, if you will. And they're on that journey to become business leaders. And they often don't know if they want to, or what it looks like, or how to do it, or what that means for their sense of identity. Is that how are they going to be valuable? And assuming one does want to take their career in that direction to the perspective of higher levels of leadership, then what do you have to do? And instead of us, Vicky and I, talking about it, we thought we'd actually get someone on board who's a little bit younger and has been through that shift and actually endured our famous circles of suck and come out of it the other way. So the way we're going to do this series is we've got episode 1 on the sort of techie to business leader series is going to be what I'm calling the identity shift, which is how you have to look at yourself differently. Episode 2 is going to be the human shift, which is how one has to look at relating to humans in a very, very different way. And finally, what I call the authenticity shift. And more on that to come in episode 3. So without further ado, I want to welcome back Vicky from her wonderful vacation. And of course, Sean. Hello, everyone.
Hey, Vips. Hi, Sean. Great to have you here.
Yeah, thrilled to be here. Great to see you.
And I'm so excited about this journey we're going on, as I had a similar journey and I had a very bad circle of suck. So I can't wait to hear more about yours.
Yeah, it's fun to be here and to talk it through. Vips, you want me to go into an intro from here?
Absolutely. I think it'd be great for everyone. I mean, they know who we are, hopefully.
Okay.
But they don't know who you are. So it'd be great for you to just share a little bit about you and your story.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So thanks again for having me. It's wonderful to be here. My story is that when I was in college, I think as most people are, they're trying to hit the right balance of what do I like to do and what's in demand. And what I realized is that the computer programming jobs were bountiful at that time, and so that easily got my attention, and I shifted over to that area. I ended up getting a MIS degree, a Management Information Systems degree from LSU in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and that was a wonderful experience. That helped land a technology job with Anderson Consulting or Accenture, as they're known these days. And after being there for 4 years or so, I had the skills that I needed to really to break out and become an independent consultant. And so that journey, just that part of it, took me from technical to more deeply technical, because the way the market responds to sole proprietors and independent contractors is by rewarding technology skills. So I built those up, and I enjoyed that part. I made a lot of money and had a lot of flexibility. Probably had the chance to build the business, but I chose not to. Really, just kept flexible and enjoyed riding the next technology wave and stuff like that, and not really worrying about any employees. But around it was during that time that the tech was still interesting, but there were things that started to change for me, and I think I just wanted something more. I wanted something bigger, and I realized that tech was not tech was not the dog. It was the tail, and it was really the business. And so I felt like I was kind of the tail trying to wag the dog, and just realized that there was more that I needed to know. There was more about people, about business, about product, about strategy, about the intersection of those things into what makes companies go, and what makes products go, what makes solutions go, and what creates value for companies and for customers. So I kind of started this journey of moving more into holistic consulting, and that was still through a technology lens, but has expanded over time as I've gone. It's been more than a 25-year career, all in consulting.
So, Sean, I'm curious about your circles of suck. I'd love to hear about your first one. So, as you're going on your journey, I know our listeners would love to know, like, what was that first really tough moment where you're like, I think I'm doing all the right things, but something in you just feels not good. You just aren't enjoying it. It's just harder than it should be, and you're struggling away. I'd love to know about your first circle of suck.
Well, the very first one was right when I started the first project as a brand new hire, and when they got me there, they said, "We don't have anything for you to do yet," and so that was super frustrating.
I know that one. I don't know about Vicky. I had that one too.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I had it. I had to threaten my one manager that I was going shopping, and he could call me back when he had something for me to do.
So I was just real eager, and I wanted to prove that I belonged, and I wanted to start the process of building skills. So with a little bit of observation and a little bit of help from others, what I ended up doing was buying an Excel book, Microsoft Excel, and I worked through every exercise in that book. And before you knew it, a couple months later, I had built a reputation as someone who could fix anybody's spreadsheet. And then a couple months after that, I got called into the CEO's office of our client to fix some budgeting spreadsheet. And so there I was on this weird fast track into the C-suite corner office. But back to the circle of suck, it was really just kind of a fear-based thing. I was like, this is not good for me to sit here and wait. I need to do something. And so I just thought, I think the way out of the circle of suck is to try to build a skill on a ubiquitous platform. And so part of the question I asked was, what's going to matter for maybe the entire arc of a 40-year career? And just in talking with some folks, it seemed like spreadsheets are probably not going away for a long time. And sure enough, I think that's true.
Money and numbers are normally a safe bet, right?
That's right. And so I think that the circle of suck really was just, it was fear of the unknown, and it was fear of just not becoming who I thought I could be, and that drove a lot of motivation.
Well, I love how you tackle that, because it would be so easy to sit on your hands or go shopping like I did. It would be so easy just to wait for something to come to you, as opposed to figuring out. I mean, I think getting into Excel is genius. It probably even would be today, because it drives so many business leaders as they think about their plans or their data or whatever it might be. So I'm like, wow, why didn't I think of that? That was genius, especially as a young person, because it's a skill you can learn really easily. And it's got huge business value, because most people only know the basics. They don't know how to do all the complex formulas and things behind the scenes.
Well, I think that's true, and I had some fun with it. One of the things that I did is I built a bingo card generator, and what we used to do is put the phrases that our manager would say all the time into a little Excel-based bingo card generator. People would come to my office and get a new card, and we'd go into the meeting, and the rules were that you won only if you got bingo, and then you said the word bingo in the meeting. So funny things would happen. The manager would say these couple of phrases, and then someone would say, Johnny, that's a brilliant idea. If we just take that step, then bingo will be right where we want to be. And and the whole room would deflate because they knew someone had cleared their card.
But what a great way to introduce early gamification as well, and make meetings interesting.
Well, at least you get to keep people engaged until they hit bingo, right?
That's right.
So
That's
the
right.
key is to keep it going till the 58th minute. So your hour's meeting works out just fine.
That's right. And, and it was really just like a random function, and me experimenting with some lesson that was in this Excel book to try to figure out, well, what could I do with this? And I thought, well, okay, here's a creative way that would be entertaining. And so, I think maybe those were some of the early signs of connecting, to the value of tech. Maybe I had more of it in me at the beginning than I realized, but it certainly was a tech-focused existence at the beginning.
I think what's also really interesting about what you said was it talks a lot to one of our fabulous person non-negotiables, which is you didn't wait to be told what to do. The grit and hustle came through. I got to do something. Let me go and do something. And with a bit of luck, value will emerge. Now, you were probably thinking about it for even longer, like what might be a good thing to do that's going to be valuable for an extended period of time. But I think it's worth calling out, particularly for people who listen to this that are maybe earlier on in their careers, is it's very easy to only do the things that your boss asks you to do. And that kind of environment, there's a certain amount of self-empowerment that you do in order to try to do something rather than, sit on your backside and do nothing, which I think is probably what I did when I was in your, I think it took me 2 or 3 times to get to the point where actually I can do anything I want. I think you probably got there a bit quicker. But that identity shift you describe is very much the arc to that starting that journey, if you like, into becoming a technologist. And then you said you went even deeper.
I did. It went even deeper. I'll tell you, for a while, probably 3 or 4 or 5 years into my career, my best days were the days where I didn't talk to anybody, and I had the door closed and a Unix prompt and was just coding away. And I think it was because people are inherently messy, and businesses and processes and business strategy, these things, they're messy and they're complex. And I think, in my middle 20s, I appreciated the simplicity of, you're trying to get some software that's got some clear rules, or a language that's got clear rules and clear syntax and stuff to work the way you want it to. So it was a way maybe to control the environment a little bit and to keep my world small. And so, yeah, for a while, it got very much focused on technology, but that also kind of ran its course, and I just realized that you can't stay can't stay in a closed door room. There's a big world out there, and I think part of it was just some of the solutions that we were working on, they didn't land the way I thought they would, and part of that was that there was too much closed door, there was too much headphones on, there was too much tech, and not enough of the other pieces. And I think that's probably some of the next circle of suck is just living through some of those painful moments of missing the mark, or creating some disappointment for other people that motivated some of the next parts of the journey.
What would be a good example of that? I'm curious. When did you miss the mark? If you could make it real for us.
Yeah, I think the trying to think of a good example. I think it just comes down to the buildup. It's a little bit similar to the progression of getting a gift for somebody that you really care about. And so you listen and you ask questions, and then you shop and you buy, and then you wrap, and then you wait, and that's an anticipatory type buildup, and then there's the big reveal, and sometimes you get it right, and then what it feels like when you've missed the mark. There's looking away, and there's quiet voices, and there's not wanting to say it, and then there's not usage, and those kinds of things. So there was a similar thing where like I did the equivalent of the asking questions and the shopping and wrapping, and then when the big reveal came, you could just feel it in the room. This is not what they wanted. There was something missing, and that it was real heartbreaking, because I was taking just like this very earnest approach to it, but I wasn't asking the right questions, and we just were not. We were not communicating well enough yet about what was needed.
You are so humble in the way you express that. And I need to maybe ask a question a slightly different way. I mean, I know what you do for a living. I know where you work for a living. So you're surrounded by many techies, right? Many
That's
techies
right.
who got deep. They do like wearing the headphones, much like I'm wearing right now and you're wearing right now. Do like staring at the, well, Linux prompt, I suspect now. um, and how do you advise and coach them that there is a world outside of that room if they're even interested? Like, how does that play out in the world you're in?
Yeah, these days, even though we've got a lot of technologists, like you said, we're taking just a lot more holistic approach. That things start with business value. They start with unmet needs and solutions, whether they're technology or process or otherwise, that don't meet a need are a waste of effort, and they're not worth it. So we've really inverted the model in a lot of ways, and we always start there, and we start there with new hires as well. What's the business value? Why are we doing this? What happens if we don't do it? Who cares? Why do they care? Those types of questions, and I think that just it builds a baseline or a set of fundamentals to where you're a lot more wired that way. I think also now a lot of the degree programs at the top universities, they're also figuring this out, and they're integrating it into the way they teach it as well. But certainly the way I was taught, none of that stuff mattered. It was all syntax and functions and structure and these things that don't have anything to do with business value. Business value was this other thing that you had to learn, and it was almost like a second class citizen. Like, you need to go learn this on your own time. It's not in the core curriculum. And I think what we've done is we've just inverted that, and we've said, no, it is the core curriculum. You need to have the answer to that question before you move into any tech or into any building of anything.
Okay, so I'm really curious as to how you answer these, because we have these all day long, Vicky and I. So you have these wonderful technologists, right? They can make computers sing, and they can chuck out story points like they're going out of fashion, or they've figured out that MongoDB is really wonderful, or that AWS is the second coming of whatever. And from their point of view, it's, I don't want to do anything else because this is what pays me a lot of money. This is what makes me valuable. So I don't buy what you just said. So if I'm in that place, what are the consequences? And it could be positive or negative. What are the consequences of holding on to that identity, the techie identity? What are the consequences?
Yeah, I think the consequences are that that you will miss the mark eventually. I think the consequences are that you will not understand why something's truly needed, and therefore you might be on this wave, but it's going to be hard to catch the next wave and the wave after that. So it's a way, I think, to insulate your skills, away from just the technology platform. I recall a conversation with a brilliant technologist who was very excited about graph databases, and they were talking to me about it, and there was a lot of passion around it, but it was a bit of a kind of hammer looking for a nail. It's like, I've got this cool tool, look what I can do with it. Now let's cruise around and find the nails. And in the process of working with them, I think what we found is that the graph databases can find connections that humans aren't good at finding, and that's really where the power is. So then, where are the use cases where lots of data is coming in, and a computer could serve up an idea that a human might not get to? And so we kind of shifted this thing from being focused on graph databases to being focused on moments of value. There are these moments where there's a decision that can be made, and if you give the right information to the right people in the right moment, then a moment can become highly valuable to a retailer or to some, in some type of commercial transaction, because information is provided. And it it could be any number of things, like the size of the last pair of shoes that you bought, or the or the connection that that three of us have. Like a graph database might be able to serve up the maybe the 9 people that we have in common. I'm just making up a number. As the
7
if we were going
people,
to,
obviously.
right, clearly.
Yeah.
But if we were going to add people in, a graph database might find that faster than we would if we're just talking about it and throwing out names and testing. So it's those kinds of moments that were real powerful, and that's an example of I think where the value could come from. But if that same technologist is left with graph databases, they're not having the same type of conversation that you could otherwise.
So Sean, when you think about that journey you've been on in the circles of suck, what would you do differently if you had to do it over again? If anything.
Yeah, well, I would do it differently. I think I would want to grow up in the model we're using today. I think I'd want to invert it and go business value first, to be followed by tech only when it's appropriate and only when it's valuable. How
do you tell your 20-year-old self that, though?
Yeah.
When your 20-year-old self wants simplicity.
You're still 20, Vicky. Come on.
Yeah. I wish.
When your 20-year-old self wants simplicity, wants the power of tech, it's a whole different set of motivations.
It is. I think it's an excellent question, and I think that there's an element of bringing the pain forward. You can't avoid the pain, but you can bring the pain forward. And I think that especially for a 20-year-old, especially looking back on me when I was 20, I wasn't necessarily motivated to change without pain and suffering and the circle of suck. So I think that the way it would have worked would be to shorten the cycles. So some of the projects, were like, 10 weeks or 20 weeks long. And that's a long time to go off and try to build something before you bring it back. I think I would want to chunk it down and say, hey, build something in a smaller cycle and test it. And that would bring the pain forward. And I think I'd realize on smaller cycles that we were not on track. And I think that pain would have motivated some awareness. I don't know if it would have been enough to change, but I think it would have gotten my attention, because I certainly didn't want to be a B player, and I didn't want to underwhelm clients and managers and stuff like that. So I was pretty motivated to get it right. I didn't know how to ask the right questions. And I think some of these shorter cycles and bringing the pain forward would have been a way to learn how to ask the right questions.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I have this belief that we live through everything we need to live through to learn our lessons. And it all happens in just the right timing and just the right way. And it makes me wonder, if you had have shortened the cycles, would you have learned the lessons you needed to learn in the right way? Well,
again, I love that perspective. I mean, maybe the podcast would be different and we'd be talking about something else, because the sliding doors say there was a different choice made at that moment.
Yeah.
So I don't know that that kind of adaptation at that stage would have made everything better. I think it would have just shifted the context, and something different would have been wonderful. Something else would have been the rose, and something different would have been the thorn, and you play a different hand. So I don't know that it would have been better, but looking back on it, that's the reflection that I have of what took me a long time to learn, very much with a growth mindset, thinking about what do I not know yet, and so looking back on it, those are things that I think I would have liked to have known a little earlier.
So what's a pivotal moment that really shifted you that you don't like to talk about?
Yeah, sorry, my phone's ringing, so I'm going to take this call.
Oh, that was a good podcast, Bips.
I don't think he expected to be quite put on the spot like this, but this is good. I don't see Sean looking up and to the right that often, so he's definitely got him thinking now.
Yeah,
I'm in a cheeky mindset, Sean,
It's what
today.
happens after 6 weeks
right.
vacation.
Yeah, I was going to say no more vacation, or put me on the other side of vacation. I think it's. I'm glad you asked. I don't know that I have something that I'm accessing easily, but I will tell you that there. I think as a consultant, there are times where um, where you're building a solution design and you make some assumptions about it because you can't know the whole story at the time of design, and so you make some leaps of faith and you kind of spec things out at the highest level that you can. And um, I think the thing that I don't like talking about is just where there's been something that was likely knowable that we didn't go and try to uncover, and then that led to pain and suffering of people around me. I guess I end up being highly extroverted, and the experience of both the folks on my team as well as our clients, it matters a lot to me. I feel it pretty deeply, and so where there's something like that was knowable that I could have uncovered, that's been the kind of thing that keeps me up at night, because I know that I've created a lot of pain and suffering for others.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I can feel that.
I think we
It's
can all relate to that one.
yeah,
Like
definitely. Yeah,
I just had 3 scenarios where I know I've done that in the past. It was, yeah, it's,
yeah.
I think that's, I wanna, it's, I think it's really interesting. A couple of things you've said today that I want to really sort of home in on. Because the story you shared around in terms of how your career has developed. So, from the the Excel consultant, let's call it that, to deeper into technology. You did your own thing, but you stayed very, very deep. Then you went back to basically an organization and started what we would call the journey to awesome manager, and then ultimately to top-notch executive. So you've had 4 or 5 circles of suck in our place, which we're all basically identity shifts. I've chosen to reinvent myself, for want of a better phrase. And then you said something which was, I don't I don't come out of my circles of suck unless I have pain. Was I think roughly, if I'm paraphrasing you correctly. Do you think that we have a tendency in the professional world to not legitimize the idea that there is a certain amount of suffering that's required for growth? Especially in technology, right? Because it's a rare commodity. They're hard to find. People leave easily. They get paid shit tons of money, and da 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 da. Right? So everyone wants to have a lovely environment, a happy environment, all the bells and whistles on their employee experience, and blah 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 blah. Which then turns into, how do we create a supportive environment? How do we create a collaborative environment? How do we create a friendly environment where everyone likes each other and sings kumbaya? Kumbaya. I'm doing this on purpose, by the way, right? But then, if you do that, then how do you ever get to the place where you engineer those moments of pain to allow accelerations of career or identity?
Yeah, it's my mind is racing as you're talking. So I think that you're onto something. My mind went towards some of the job descriptions that are typical in technology. We want someone who has 5+ years of expertise on blah blah platform and 10 years of expertise with this coding language.
If they know
And so
COBOL, by the way, Vicky's great at COBOL.
I remember my move statements, Vips.
those are the kinds of things that you see. Those are the kinds of things that are rewarded. You rarely see something that's more along the lines of adapting and taking on something new, or being able to be on the leading edge and to turn over into the next wave and the next wave after that. And I think it's partly for the reason that you're describing, that there's not is that I think we're wired as humans to try to avoid suffering. And I think inside our organizations, we're also, I think, wired to avoid suffering. But but suffering's a big part of what drives skills and motivation. So I think there's a healthy amount of it. Just think that there's a lot of art in how much is the right amount. And Vips, like I remember talking about this relative to kids. It's like, how do you try to get the right amount of suffering for your kids so that they don't have a silver spoon, but they also are well cared for, and they feel loved, and there's some sweet spot in the middle that has enough challenge for them to become resilient and to know that they're resilient by themselves, not even just with you, the parent. And I think there's a similar sort of sweet spot that exists for your employees as well, and that's probably a lot more art than science. Maybe there is science, and you can school me on it.
Well, I certainly don't know what the science is. I definitely experience it as art, but I do think that's part of the reason why we have many highly paid technology individual contributors and even reasonably good managers or even architects, but what we don't really have are too many great leaders in the world of technology, people that people want to naturally follow and gravitate towards, because I think somewhere along the line that's been missed, and it's the wider ecosystem doesn't seem to know how to create a supply of those through. It's almost like weird things have to happen in order for the right things to have occurred for it to happen, as opposed to, like, I can get you from a junior developer to a team lead or a scrum master to an architect. That there's a predictable path to that, but I don't think there's a predictable path towards a business savvy, technology sourced leader that you want to follow, unless you're just super lucky, right? And you're the Americans love entrepreneurs, right? And it's the only way you can become a billionaire right now is if you're a tech entrepreneur. So it's very easy if you're a Zuckerberg or a Musk or whatever to have, the cult or the jobs, the cult of the technology billionaire. But if you look at it more from, if you think that that's like, 0.0000001% of the pyramid, I don't see I don't see the system that creates fabulous leaders from a technology background, if you like, or with a technology bias, maybe is a way to say it, at the volume levels that I think we need to deal with the challenges of the world, quite frankly. And that's what keeps me up at night, because I know they need to come from the world of technology, because it's such a big part of innovation, of growth, of dealing with the biggest problems: recycling, environment, climate, whatever it may be. But you can make a lot more money figuring out how to sell cars for Google than you can dealing with some of the bigger worldwide problems that require a different type of leadership. So it's a bit somber, but I bring it up because what I come across in technology is so many people who want to do that, but they don't really realize that the journey to doing that requires at some level being less techie.
Yeah. I think it's interesting, the people element throughout. In some cases, I think some people may be drawn to a tech track because it appears to be not having to deal with some of the messiness of some of the people related things. Kind of similar to where certainly when I was looking at my degree program in college, I was foreign language wasn't easy for me, so I was looking for something that didn't have a lot of Spanish or French or Italian, because it was hard. So I think that sometimes people are thinking that a tech track is a non-people track, but I think the upper levels of the organizations, they've got people all in them, and then I think it's easy to get quickly within like 5 or 6 years up to a level where it's 80% people. And I think when you look at some of the names that you mentioned, Zuckerberg, Musk, some of the others, that yes, they had the tech chops, but it was really the vision and probably their people leadership that really drove that idea from what it could be to what it did become.
I think that's a really interesting point, because as people decide to stay on the tech track and become an architect or something in that vein, they often do it thinking they can hide away from the people side of things. But actually, the level of influence they need is even greater because they don't have the span of
Control.
controls underneath them to get stuff done. What have you seen are the important skills, if you break it down, when we think about as you get more senior and you're a technologist, if you don't have a group of people reporting to you, how do you make an impact?
Well, I think there's the notion of selling your idea, selling your design, selling the architecture. I think there's skills of persuasion and being able to speak business value that's necessary to be able to create a solution that's gonna matter, that's gonna be used. So I think there's I think sometimes people want technology because it appears to be a track that doesn't have to sell. But I think you do have to sell more than you realize. Maybe not in the traditional sort of tweed jacket kind of metaphor, but certainly in the idea of communicating compelling ideas that other people want to say yes to and are willing to ask you tough questions about. I think another thing that comes to mind is writing software and building software products is inherently complex. There's a lot to it, and it's why a lot of the like agile software development practices that it came from software and not from other places. It's a challenging thing to do, and I think because of that, the art of asking good questions is one of the pieces that Vips and I have talked about many times, and that it becomes really important to be able to try to ascertain what you don't know yet, and to be able to dig into those things, because a lot of times people don't tell you the full story of what they need. Sometimes that's because there's not a lot of time, but other times it's because they don't have it clear in their mind, and what they really need is a partner to be able to help them uncover it. And I think a technologist that can do that well is someone who will make waves.
So there needs to be a great private investigator to get really under the covers of what's going on and then convince others to follow them and come on the journey.
I think it's a good summary of two of the big ones.
That's great.
It's a really nice way of putting it. So you did it, right? I consider you a technology orientated business leader. That's what you are now. But it wasn't always that way. So with that said, do you regret it? Do you wish you had stuck at one of those other levels, if you will, or other identities as you were going through this?
No, I don't regret it. In fact, I think probably the only way I could have made it here is probably through that track. I think I would have liked to have learned some of the lessons a little earlier and maybe gone faster or have the circles of suck a little more shallow or less long. But no, I don't regret it, and I just don't think that I would be here without that journey. So no, I don't regret it, and in a lot of ways, I feel lucky to have had the opportunity and to be, I guess I feel lucky for the richness of the opportunity.
Yeah. Do you have a sense that it? You probably haven't given this. I know I haven't asked you this question before, so I don't know if you're going to have an answer for this or not. Do you feel that when you made those shifts, did you feel like the aperture of the opportunities that were available for you stayed more or less the same, increased, decreased? Like, did you experience a difference once you made those shifts in terms of what was available to you that you didn't realize might be available to you? It maybe is the way I'm trying to say it.
Yeah, I think so. But there's a narrowing before there's an expanding. So I think it was on a bit of a curve. It certainly wasn't only an expanding type of possibilities, but I think consistent with the circle of suck concept is that things would become more narrow, I think, as tension mounted before they would open back up as tension was released and understanding was achieved. So I think that there's the aperture did change, but it certainly would go in both directions.
Yeah. Yeah. So I got to ask you, like, we're gonna probably wrap up in about 5 minutes or so, but I'm really curious as to, what's next for you on your techie to business leader journey. What do you want to do with all of that? I mean, you're close to that point now where you've accumulated so much experience, so much knowledge, so many building blocks for fabulousness, to use our language. What do you see yourself doing with that?
Yeah, well, I appreciate the compliment. You said in a previous question that you see me as a as a leader and someone who's like made the conversion, and I squirmed in my seat a little bit, only because I feel like I'm someone who's doing that, but not someone who has done that.
Okay.
Very much like a present tense verb of I'm very much still in it, and I'm still learning, and honestly, I think it's that's what makes it exciting, is that there's still things to learn, there's still room to grow. I don't have it all figured out, and I think it's that wonder of what's next, and finding the next challenge that really keeps me going. So I think what's next is to transition into that next stage of leading at scale, of truly enabling the success of others by orchestrating a lot of the pieces behind the curtain, creating scenarios and experiences where people are self-realizing things that they need along the way. Because it's one thing for us to teach something, it's another thing for them to feel like they learned something on their own without being sort of, starting to say the phrase spoon-fed. That sounds kind of pedantic, so I don't mean
without
that,
being
but without
overtaught. How about
yeah
that?
or overly structured. So I think I think the future for me is playing in that space of trying to figure out how to maximize the learning potential and the capability of the people on the team, while not bringing overly rote or overly scripted experiences to the table, because I think that's a fun continuum to experiment with, and that, along with writing and speaking, those are some of the things that I think are hopefully in my future.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So I always like to leave it with something that people can react to and reflect on for themselves. So if you think about the journey through those various stages that you described earlier for yourself, if you had to do if you imagine you're writing a Huffington Post or a Forbes style, Sean McCall's top 5 tips to navigate the circles of suck from technologist to business leadership, what would you put on that list?
I think my favorite idea is this idea of the cooking show hack. That idea is, do you ever watch a cooking show and it looks so joyful, like they've got all the ingredients pre-cut and pre-measured, and they're all in nice bowls, all on the table, and all they do is they just assemble, and
The
like
work
they
is
don't
all
do
before you on the camera, right?
That's right. You don't see the shopping or the measuring or the chopping. You don't see the cleanup. You just see the assembling. So I tried that. I thought, well, I'm going to make myself a cooking show. And sure enough, I really enjoyed the cooking. What I didn't enjoy is the fact that the cooking was surrounded by all these other tasks that weren't nearly as much fun, like the cleanup and the shopping and all this stuff. So the idea of the cooking show hack is do some of the things that are the less pleasant parts the afternoon before, like as a closing task of a Monday afternoon. And then Tuesday morning, come in and do the really joyful part, do the assembly, do the the big part that's going to make the idea really sing, but don't do any of the prep that morning. Just go straight to it. And I think in doing so, there's lots of joy and freedom and creativity that comes from that moment. I just think that sometimes what we do is we pack all the other stuff in around it, and that can reduce the luster of a particular experience. So that's probably the one that stands out to me as my favorite. And if you get in the habit of doing that at the end of each day, picking that one main thing, that if I did that one thing tomorrow, that would make tomorrow a great day. And then you ask yourself the question, what could I do this afternoon that allows me to go straight into that task tomorrow morning? And I really mean straight into it. I mean, not looking at email, not going, and because I think this is one of the problems, is that like when you've got resources that are in your inbox and stuff like that, well, then you open your inbox to go get them, and then you see the, n number of messages. It's like you just go get a folder and you stash everything in this folder that you need, and you don't open email. You just go straight into this folder and you open the thing you want to do, and then you give your energy to it first thing in the morning when most people's energy is high. And then, your inbox is waiting there for you at 9:30 or 10 or whatever. And, when I'm able to get into that kind of rhythm, those are the days and weeks that I feel the best about myself. And I think those are when my work product is the very best, because I'm maximizing my attention and maximizing my creativity.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. That's I'm so sorry. You made me think that your cooking show hack thing is so cool. It made me think about we're doing like a program at the moment on how to rewire our self-discipline given the current environment and pseudo lockdown and COVID distancing and so forth, working from home remotely, etc. And it's nothing short of we have this phrase that we got so used to outsourcing our discipline to our work environments. Like if you have to physically be somewhere, then you're probably going to be doing something associated with what you have to do when you're there. But if you're in your living room or your bedroom, then that accountability is now on you. The discipline is now on you. It's no longer, you don't get any of that for free from the environment. And as you were talking about that, it really made me think that, you didn't say it out loud. And I know this of you, and I want people to hear that, you have extraordinary self-discipline when it comes to I need to work myself through a challenge or a circle of suck or a problem. You don't give up. I'd really like you, just in the few minutes we have left, to say, where do you think that I don't give up came from for you? And how would you speak to someone who maybe doesn't have those levels of self-discipline and is trying to figure out how to be, how can I put it, be more committed rather than New Year's resolution-ish?
Well, thanks for the compliment. I think that it comes from a place of wanting to be valued. And maybe some of that's not the healthiest channel, because it's I think some of it is seeking external validation, and sometimes I think seeking external validation was because the internal self-talk and the internal validation wasn't there. So I think early in my life I didn't learn some of those skills, and so the way I still met the need of feeling accepted and achieving validation was through hustle and achievement, and then I kind of ate that up, and that was some of the life source that fed me. But I think that probably the healthier way is to balance that internal and external validation, and to drive a self-image of self-worth and growth mindset and appreciation for the journey, not the destination. Those types of things, they sound a little bit cliche, but I think those are the things that, to try to drive into 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds in music, in school, in sports, in family, in chores, with pets, with each other, with those types of things, because I think without that, then they show up in our adult lives in those types of ways.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I don't know if that helps, but I'll tell you that that's where I think a lot of it comes from.
That's incredible. So I just want to say this is great. It's so much fun to do. For those of you who don't know, Sean and I, we've known each other for a long time. We've threatened to do something together for 4 years. Never actually got round to it. Mainly because of my issue, and this is like a nice moment for me. I really wanted to do this with Sean, and I think this has been so insightful, and it's really nice to hear for someone who has a very different journey and ended up in a very similar kind of place. And just to show, particularly those of you who are more technical in nature, that there's nothing wrong with that. Those are right choices. But if you do want to take the journey towards becoming better leaders that can, in some way, shape, or form, create more impact in the world or reinvent their environments, whether it be their causes, their communities, whether it be their companies, then some of what was said today should really help accelerate you, because we're talking to someone who's done it already. So what can I say, Sean? Thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to the next one, episode 2. And
well, I enjoyed it very much. The conversation was wonderful, and I'm so glad we finally made it here, and I look forward to the next one as well.
Sounds great. So until next time, everyone, be fabulous, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.